In this video, I'm going to be giving you 30 tips for when you're training your chest in only 8 minutes. These tips are going to help you to get faster gains, help you to get a bigger chest, a stronger chest, and help you get more out of your chest training. Just before we get started, my name's Charlie. I'm a bodybuilder, BJJ fighter, level 3 personal trainer, with over 7 years of experience in the fitness industry, and have helped many clients gain muscle, build strength, and lose weight. If you're interested in online coaching, just check the link in the description. The first tip is going to be that your chest has 3 main functions. First is obviously to bring your arms close together. Second is the upper chest, which is slightly involved in lifting your arm up. Third is the lower chest, which is slightly involved in lifting your arm down. Tip 2, you're generally going to want to focus on building your upper chest, as in most cases it's going to be underdeveloped compared to your lower chest. You want to try and do movements to target more of your upper chest. Tip 3, one of the ways you can go about this is by changing the bench from being flat to being on an incline, as the incline will work a bit more of your upper chest. Tip 4, however, if you have the incline too steep, it will start to work more of your shoulders. So that sweet spot is going to be around 15 degrees, which is normally in the lowest incline, one away from being completely flat, as that will work your upper chest the most without too much of the focus going towards your shoulders. Tip 5, when you're doing any sort of push-up and you want to target your upper chest more, you want to do a decline push-up where your feet are elevated higher than your head, as this will work your upper chest a bit more doing it this way. Tip 6, in pretty much all cases when you're training your chest, you want to make sure you're keeping your shoulder blades back together and down, as this will be a lot safer when you're training. It will avoid like shoulder injuries, but it'll also put more of the focus onto your chest when you're training. So yeah, make sure you're keeping your shoulder blades back. Tip 7, when you're doing any sort of dumbbell bench press, you want to try and maximize the range of motion. So if you let your hands come slightly wider and let them come slightly lower, you'll get more of a deeper stretch from your chest when you're doing it in that way. Tip 8, a cool bench press variation you can try to target more of your upper chest will be doing an underhand bench press, where instead of your palms facing like towards your legs, then instead face towards your head with like an underhand grip, as this will orientate your arms in a way that will target a lot more of your upper chest. Tip 9, when you're doing a chest fly, try if you can to have the seat quite low, as this will target more of your upper chest, and try and let the handles come back as far as possible, as this will place the most stretch on your chest. So yeah, best case would be having the seat low and the handles far back. Tip 10, when you're doing any sort of cable fly, try and make sure your palms are facing up as opposed to together, as this is similar to that underhand bench press. By having your hands in that way when they're facing up, it will target slightly more towards your upper chest. Just before we move on, I'd like to make you aware of a free email campaign that started. What it is 31 fitness tips plus 31 days, but each of these tips is going to massively transform your fitness progress. It's going to help you with everything like the training, cardio, recovery, mindset, motivation, eating, supplements, goal setting, everything you need to know to make this year in fitness your best year so far. Again, that's 100% free, links in the description, make sure to check it out. Tip 11, when you are training your chest, try and think about bringing your elbows and your biceps together as opposed to your hands together. As a function of your chest is to bring your elbow across your center line, you want to make sure that you're allowing your elbows to come close together, as if you just bring your hands together, your elbows and your arms can still be bent, meaning your chest isn't fully engaged. So yeah, make sure you're keeping your arms straight, elbows and biceps in together to get a proper chest contraction. Tip 12, if you feel pain in your shoulder when doing any sort of pressing movement, try and have your elbows a little bit less flared, as this will mean there's less tension going through your shoulder and a bit more towards our other muscles. So yeah, try doing it that way if you do feel shoulder pains when you're doing any sort of pressing movement. Tip 13, when you're doing any sort of pressing movement, try and allow your back to have a slight arch, as this will not only reinforce your shoulder blades being back together, but it will also just put your body in a better position to do that pressing movement. Tip 14, however, you want to try and avoid arching too excessively to the point where your hips start lifting off the bench, as this can lead to injuries and put a lot of stress on your lower back. So yeah, just make sure you're having a slight arch when you're benching. Tip 15, try and make sure you're doing rotator cuff exercises, as these will help to keep your shoulder more healthy and more stable, which will allow you to train your chest and progressively overload without leading to injuries and pain. So yeah, make sure you're doing exercises for your rotator cuff. Tip 16, when you're doing the bench press and you don't have a spotter, just make sure you have pins set up, as if you were to foul in a bench press, it will mean that the bar can come down to the pins, which is a lot safer doing it in that way. Tip 17, if you foul in a dumbbell bench press, just allowing the dumbbells to drop straight down to your side. Don't be tempted to try and cone the weight down or let your shoulder go into this position shown in the video, as this can lead to quite serious injuries. So yeah, just make sure you're just dropping them down to your side if you do foul a rep. Tip 18, a cool drop set you can do is to start with doing like chest flyers on the bench, and once you can't get any more reps, switch to doing dumbbell bench press on the bench, as obviously you'll be stronger doing the dumbbell bench press, and therefore be able to get like a few extra reps in once you've done the flies on the bench. Tip 19, when you're doing the chest fly machine, try and think about having your elbows straight when your hands are together, but allow your elbows to bend when your hands come apart, as this will maximize the range of motion as well as the contraction of your chest throughout the movement. Tip 20, also when you're doing a chest fly, try and lean forward as like a variation, as this will target your upper chest a little bit more and will just provide like a bit of a different stimulus towards your chest. Tip 21, however, you probably want to avoid this if you do have shoulder injuries, as it can put quite a bit of stress on your shoulders. So if you do feel like shoulder pains when you're doing a chest fly, try and do a variation where you're leaning a bit more back, as this will put your shoulders in a safer position. Tip 22, when you're doing like chest and triceps or chest and back and you want to focus on your chest, make sure you're doing your chest exercises first and then your tricep or back exercises, as obviously you're having the most energy towards the beginning of your workout, and therefore will be able to like lift a bit more weight, do a few more reps if you do your chest exercises first. Tip 23, if you feel like your hands are slipping on the bench press, especially if you were to use like a wider grip, try using chalk on your hands. This will remove any moisture from your hands and helps keep your grip more like stable on the bar to prevent your hands from slipping. Tip 24, when you're doing any sort of fly, try and ensure that your elbow bend is consistent from rep to rep, set to set, as what you want to avoid is like as you progressively overload and increase weight, you want to avoid like bending your elbows less to make the exercise easier, as that won't actually be making the exercise harder for your chest. So yeah, make sure that your elbow bend is consistent like each session when you're doing any sort of fly. Tip 25 is going to be to do with the grip width that you use when you're doing a pressing movement. If yours grip quite narrow, it'll be more for your triceps. The wider you grip, the more your chest will be used, but you want to avoid gripping too wide to the point where your elbows flare out too much, as this can put a lot of stress on your shoulders doing it this way. So yeah, have like a fairly wide grip, a fair amount of elbow flare, just as long as you're not flaring anywhere near like 90 degrees. Tip 28, a cool like advanced training method that you can do is once you've done any sort of chest exercise like a dumbbell bench press, cable crossover or whatever, and you can't do any more reps, immediately drop down and just start doing push-ups straight away. As if your advanced push-ups would be quite easy, but they can be a good like mechanical drop set or finisher once you've done any normal set of chest. Tip 27, when you're doing a cable crossover and you're targeting your upper chest, try and lean forward a little bit more with more of a length forward stance, as not only will this be more stable when you're doing the movement, but it will also work even more of your upper chest when you're doing it in that way. Tip 28, when you're doing any sort of chest press machine, try and have the seat fairly low to the point where your elbows are flared out a little bit. Again, not too much when they're like flared at 90 degrees or anywhere near that, but you still want to have like a decent flare, and also have the handle set up quite far back if your shoulders are flexible enough, as this will maximize the range of motion when you're doing it in that way. Tip 29, if you feel like any pain in your wrist when you're doing any sort of like bench press or chest exercise, try using wrist wraps, as these will help to keep your wrist more stable. It'll help to keep like the wrist joint more warm and will reduce pain when you're training. And then lastly, tip 30, if you feel any pain like in your elbows when you're training or doing any sort of pressing movement, try and use like an elbow sleeve, as similar to the wrist wraps. These help to keep your elbows more warm, helps keep like the joint more stable, and will help to reduce any elbow pains when you're lifting. So that's going to conclude all 30 tips. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe and like. As I mentioned earlier on, there'll be links in the description to online coaching, as well as that email campaign that I mentioned earlier. If you'd like to know the fastest way for you to get jacked, then click the video and it will be just here, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.